Okay, can you hear me? Okay, thank you very much, Mark. So I was supposed to start at 10, you know, we are in Switzerland, but not in Spain, instead already 10 past 10. And I'm the one who is supposed to give you a spoon of author profiling, so author profiling soupe. And I hope at the end of my talk you could think that it tastes or could taste kind of good. Right, I'm from the Technical University of Valencia, and concretely I also involve in the research work in a research center there, pattern recognition and human language technology. Okay. Good. So briefly, I will introduce you to the author profiling, especially gender and age identification. Then I will share with you what we have been doing in terms of organizing benchmarks in a lab at CLE. And finally, I will talk about how it's possible to identify gender and age on the basis also of the use of emotion. Why author profiling is interesting? Okay, so basically, most of the time we cannot really infer who wrote the text, but we can infer what kind of person could have written a text. So if a male or female, a teenager or an adult. And this is pretty much important for forensic linguist reasons, as you can imagine, security. So you can want to know who is behind a certain threat, for instance. But I guess many of you who are here are more interested in the marketing perspective. So Mark said about the importance of sentiment analysis. So once you are able to determine if an opinion is positive and negative, that is not always so easy because some figurative language like irony could be used, then you could have an idea about what the market, what the people say about your services, your products. So maybe what you are offering is not really appreciated by youngers, by teenagers. And so you can, most of the time, you don't have this information in the profile of the user, so you have to infer it somehow on the basis of the writing style, okay? So as I said, I will focus on gender and age, but other demographics aspects could be also work, like personality, native language, and language variety. So if someone who writes in English is originally from Italy, for instance, or, his native language is English, but is from the States, from New Zealand, and so on and so forth. Okay, so I will start to introduce to the topic, sharing with you, saying something about some seminal work of a couple of colleagues of mine, Moshe Koppel and Jane Baker. And actually, I will start asking you to read. Mark, I was very glad that Mark said that, it's kind of boring because you have to read the text, so please get bored and read these two texts for me. Okay, so let's participate a bit. You are kind of used to vote. You have many referendums from time to time here in Switzerland. So let's vote. And so how many of you think that the text on your left has been written by a female? A lot. And how many think the opposite, that has been written by a male? I would say that probably majority say a female, even if there is a good number of people who think that is could have been a male. Why a female? If I can ask someone of you, why a female? Please, you said female.
It's longer.
Yeah. I'm glad that you say this because it would have been politically not very correct. So in every country I see that it's something language independent, someone runs longer. And apart from that?
There are lots of eyes.
Not eyes, okay, yes, good point. And what about the ones who say the male? Someone say the male, don't be shy.
There are a lot of eyes.
So the same reason, but okay. Well, I'm not going to tell you, so I don't know if tonight you'll be able to sleep. But I can tell you something that my colleagues, Moshe Koppel, Argamon, etc., find out on the basis from a statistical viewpoint. Analyzing the British National Corpus. So, for instance, they found out that males use more adjective of modifiers, females more pronouns, more present tense, more negation. Do you agree? Do you agree? No, yes. So, yeah, definitely yes. And so, if we can go through the text again, I don't know if you're able to see the words in red. So in the text that you have on your left, there are more pronouns, my, me, he, and so on. The text of the right, less. And what about the present tense? The same, show, develop, indicate, put, describes, and the other one, not so many, propose, dictates, for instance. And what about the negation? Definitely in the left one we have more, not so many more, but more, not, nor, not, just one on the right. And the off modifiers, no matter the text on the right is shorter, we have more. So as you can see, this should make you think that, the text on the left has been written by a female. So aspects like the length of the text have not been taken into account. This was just a case that the two things happened together. But this kind of information has been extracted from a statistical viewpoint, and so it's possible to some extent to predict with a certain grade of exactitude who could have been written the text. What about if we have to deal with text in social media? So of course we cannot count, we can count, but the frequency of the terms in a short text is not very high, so we have to deal to infer some other information. So make a guess about not only the gender but also the age. So teenager, 20s or 30s. What do you think? Could have been a teenager, 20s. What do you think? Yeah? Teenager maybe. And what about male and female? Female, because of course also here you don't admit in a social media that you want to cry. We cry, we lock our door in the office, we cry, but we don't cry. This is the point. This was actually a case like this. And then they work with this kind of text, blog post, and as you can see, they had some gaps in between ages, because the hypothesis is that at some point your writing style changes, but it's not that you blow the candle and happy birthday to you, and you start immediately to change your writing style. So this is the way they work. And they also try to infer, what kind of words were more used. So what were the worries that had, for instance, teenagers. They were worried about, homeworks, and they got bored, maths, and so on and so forth. These same words were not so frequent in the other age classes. When you are getting older, you attend the university maybe. You are not only worried about studying, but you also go to the pub. You have some beer and so on. When you are in your 30s, you think about your sons and your marriage and so on and so forth. So, okay, no matter it's a kind of fun, you can infer information like this from text, so you can really understand what people talk about, what people are worried about, okay? And they also try to understand more differences from male and females, so they use the LIWC, Linguistic Inquiry Word Count, developed by Pennebaker, and they found out that men talk more about the job, money, sports, and TV. Okay, these are posts, of a US blog, but maybe it could be something similar also in Europe. And instead, women are more about sex, I have to say, because every time I'm asked sex in the sense of love altogether. I mean, but it's named like this. Family, eating, not because probably they eat more, but because they have to prepare the food for the men, that they watch sport on TV, and they do nothing. And they give more importance to the friendship. They sleep more, or maybe they sleep less, and this is the reason why they complain. And no doubt, I mean, more emotions are used by women, talking about emotions, positive and negative, okay? Then they also try to put the things together in order to see if there was something that could be somehow different in some category. I'm pretty crap with the laser, but anyway. The middle, yes. The middle, but it doesn't work. But anyway, so, yeah, it works. So it was me. So as you can see, for instance, here, female, male, the age, and this is a kind of interesting to see that this is a word that especially females in their 30s use, so they were worried about. Can you guess? Yeah, it could be pregnancy, but in order to have a child and so on, you need a husband. What they didn't say if actually in the paper if they complain about the husbands, or probably yes, because they're watching TV and doing sports on TV, doing nothing. All right, and. Time here is flexible in Switzerland today, so I mean, don't worry, Marca, we'll try to speed up. And I would like also to share with you what we try to do in terms of organizing benchmarks, because we really believe that for research it's important to have a common corpus, a common data set that teams could, researchers in general, could compare. Because if you read the papers, okay, wonderful results, but then you cannot maybe have access to the corpus. Another team, other researchers could have used another corpus. So we really believe that this is the way to try to help moving research in a certain field, organizing shared tasks. And the PAN is a lab of clay. Initially it was a workshop, but then it was a lab at clay, and that has been involved in this year on a task like plagiarism detection, author identification, author profiling, online sexual predator, and it was organized by a colleague here, University of Lugano, Fabio Crestani, and this year auto-obfuscation. So, I mean, the text was paraphrased in order to see how robust were the techniques for plagiarism detection, auto-profiling, and auto-identification, and so kind of interesting. So the first year, never before has been a shared task on author profiling had been organized. So we did it in 2013, 21 teams at the end submitted results. More were interested, but because of the kind of big data they had to deal with, they weren't able to submit at the right time. And as you can see, like our colleagues, we focus on 3 ages classes, and we try not to work only with English, but also with Spanish. Then the following year, we thought it was interesting not only to work with the social media like NetBlog, for instance, but also with the blogs, Twitter, TripAdvisor. And apart from that, we wanted to have a continuous age classes, so more difficult to identify the right age, and again, Spanish and English. Last year, also personality was addressed. We focused on Twitter, and also personality was addressed. And apart from English, Spanish, Italian, Dutch were involved. And this year, we focus the shared task from a different perspective. So sometimes you have a valuable text of a certain genre, and like Twitter, and you wanted to be able to infer the age and the gender, but of a text of a different gender, like a post of blogs. Okay. Now I'm going to share the way we try to approach the problem in a slightly different way. So taking emotion into account, and together with a colleague of mine of an enterprise, okay, Autoritas Consulting in Spain. So we took into account the 6 Ekman emotions, but in what way? Well, first, let's say the kind of a standard way. So we try to take into account the style. So things like the frequency of words, of character flooding, words that start with capital letters, and so on and so forth. And the frequency also of the punctuation marks, emoticons, of course, the part of speech, so the frequency of the grammatical categories. And okay, we work especially with the Spanish, not only with the Spanish, so we use a lexicon of list of words that occur with with the 6 each of the 6 emotions. Then, so this was the basic way we tried to to take into account emotion. But apart from that, we tried to approach it in a slightly more complete way. So we wanted to take into account the morphosyntactic category using, well, for those of you who work with natural language processing with Freelin. So it's not so interesting that you spend the time to read, maybe it's even a little bit smaller, you know, the tags here. Basically, to each word, a certain tag has been associated in order to take into account the morphosyntactic information. So the sentence is in Spanish, so at least you can learn something more than the typical sentence you say when you go to Spain on holiday, una cerveza, por favor. And so, I'm just joking. But I have been taking online courses about valuable subjects that I enjoy studying and might help me to speak in public. And then the idea is to link this information. Okay, no, just one. Right. Okay, so basically we want to take into account this part of speech sequence. So this wants to be nodes of a graph, and the nodes and edges, as you can see. Then we took into account other information like the topics, courses and public. So using another resource, WordNet domains, for instance, to courses, you know, the information that could be on transport, geography, pedagogy, school, and so on was added. The same for public. Then, oh, jeez, just one, too fast. You are too fast in Switzerland. Also in these devices. Okay. Okay. Now, verbs. Stay there. So a taxonomy of 6 classes of verbs was taken into account. So I enjoy, so is a verb that is related to emotion, study, to understanding, might, will, speak language, and so on. Polarity, talking about the sentiment, yeah, also the polarity of words was taken into account. Valuable is positive, I enjoy, positive, help, positive. Okay, so these are edges of our graph, okay? And then emotions, okay, the 6 basic Ekman emotions, so enjoy, and joy is a joy emotion, as you can see. And so basically, you had already a flavor of how this graph could be built, and this is actually the way it happens. So, you know, for each of the words, there is a certain edge, and a certain node and edge is linked. So courses now, then the information about the WordNet domains, okay, has been added there, and so on and so forth. So details are not so interesting, but you can see the information about the polarity, if a word has a certain polarity, and etc., etc. Emotion. It's a verb of emotion, so disfruto, enjoy, okay, it's a verb of emotion. Again, I mean, it's positive polarity, so the size of this node is bigger, and refers to the basic joy emotion of Ekman, and so on and so forth. This is study, it's a verb of understanding, and so at the end of the story, you have a graph like this for what? For each of the sentences you have of the author you have to deal with, right? Okay, right. Then you do it for all the sentences of the same author, and you come up to the computer, yes. This is basic, you're right. Thanks. And so at the end, if you put together all the information of the subgraphs, you are able to build on the basis of all the sentences you analyze, you have for each author a graph like this. Remember that here we work with classes of authors. So basically, all males, for instance, okay, we put all together the information of the graphs of the males, and the same for the age, and males, females, but different ages. Okay. Then, once you have this graph, you need to extract the features, you need to extract a characteristic from it, because as you have seen, it's a mess, a lot of edges and nodes, and so it's not really understandable what is there. So you have, you want to extract the features that are based on the structure of the graph, but also features that are node-based. So I give you a flavor. Of course, if you are interested in it, I can share with you more information later on. But the idea is, for instance, to extract the information that deals with the ratio between a node and edge, that from a discourse viewpoint could mean how complicated the discourse is, the weighted average degree, so how much interconnected the grammatical categories are, the diameter of a graph, so how far a grammatical category is from others, for instance, a topic from an emotion, okay? The density of a graph, so how each grammatical category is used in combination with others. The modularity, so you wanted to see if a graph could be somehow divided in different modules, so if the discourse could be modeled in different structural or stylistic units, and so on and so forth. So just to give you a flavor to the computer. And then with respect to the node-based feature, basically we try to take into account the engine vector and betweenness. So engine vector, somehow like the page rank one, we have to deal on daily basis with Google. So refer to the grammatical categories with the most central use in the author's discourse. So like nouns, certain verbs, and betweenness, so how certain words are important because are in between certain parts of the discourse, like the connectors when we talk, for instance. Okay. So with all this feature, we did what? We fed a classifier, support vector machine in order to see if we were able to learn something. And of course, we wanted to compare ourselves with the state of the art, so with the participants of the shared task we organized concretely. This refers to 2013. So this is the approach that takes into account just the lexicon of words related to the 6 basic emotions and some others frequency-based features, so the basic one. And this is the one that I just tried to describe, so the emograph, the one that tried to model the discourse as a graph. As you can see, for age and gender, we were able to obtain comparable results to the best teams. Actually, the difference between the first 2 and 3 teams is not statistically different. There isn't any statistical difference between the performance, the results of the 3 teams, the rank 1 to 3. And so this means that taking into account emotion could be an alternative in order to identify gender and age in a social media text. And I just, so I'm doing okay, no matter Mark is looking at the time, half an hour, so 5 minutes more and as a maximum, and then time for questions, plenty of time. And so at the end of the story, I will be more Swiss than you. And talking about so differences between gender, males and females. So here you can see, actually sorry, I forgot about you guys, I come here. And you have here the 6 categories of the verb taxonomy, so the emotion, verbs like feel, love, and so on, the language, say, tell, understanding, think, and so on, perception and will. And as you can see, there is a difference with respect to the verbs related to emotion, so are more used by females, so something in line. And instead, in line with the previous studies, even if previous studies refer to words, not really just the verb category, and morphosyntactic information. So instead, men talk a little bit about things, so use more verbs related to the language category, say, tell, speak, and so on. Okay, what could be somehow nice to see is, okay, see, females versus males with respect to age. In this corpus, we dealt with the three categories, so 10s, 20s, and 30s. We talked about before. In the females and males, what happens as logical when we grow up, we use less emotion, okay? So less verbs related to the emotion category. With respect to understanding, we have to say that we male, at least in this corpus, seems that when we grow up, we try to understand more things. So the use of verbs related to the understand the category is higher. So that's good. We become clever. But if you look at, or at least we pretend to, but if we look at the numbers, actually we reach the same level that the females had already when they were younger. So this in order to be politically correct, but it wasn't me, this statistics. Right. Of course, even if we work mainly on Spanish, we wanted to see how robust was our approach also with the English, so we carry out the same experiments, but in other corpus of the PAN of the following year, where moreover not only social media like text were involved, but also blogs, Twitter, reviews. So as you can see, not always Emograph, our approach was the best one, but certainly was, the results when compared to the best performing system were somehow similar. Okay, sometimes better, sometimes less. And especially in reviews, because the domain was very specific, so it wasn't very easy also from an emotion viewpoint. Usually when you write a review, you are against or in favor of something, so the structure of this course was pretty standard. But so, once more, this means that so the takeaway message is that emotion may help profiling authors if they are considering the framework of the discourse structure. Okay, so thank you very much. Thank you. Take your time. It wasn't only me having to be some problems with the technology.
Yeah, it's not my technology.
I didn't bring it from Spain.
You didn't? I don't know. Yeah, now, take some time. Okay, thanks, Paolo, for the talk. I found it very interesting because we tried to participate this year and we failed to do good results. So
the timing, you're always a little bit too late.
But I have to admit, I am not born as a Swiss.
Okay.
So all the Swiss are. It's not the Swiss that has a problem with time. So I think there is time for questions. I will come around with a microphone.
First, thank you for the talk. And my question is about gender. Only two gender? Yeah, from biological point of view, yes, but maybe for text analysis, do you have an idea if we can have a third or a fourth one?
I'm very open, and as you can see, I live in Spain, and there is possible everything. And moreover, I show up very colorful, so no problem at all. But it's a sensitive, actually it's an interesting but a sensitive issue. I can confidentially, because it's not recorded, so it's something that will be with us. That one of our colleagues, Walter Dallemans, some years ago in Belgium, actually made a proposal in order to go a little bit further of the two genders and the project wasn't accepted because it was considered not politically correct. But if you really are interested in this topic, I really suggest you to work on the outliers. And maybe those cases that were misclassified and they were very close to a gender, and so could help you to come up with the third and the fourth gender, I don't know. But yes, maybe we should at some point to go beyond this issue, but so far it's not easy.
All right, so a question. So sentiment analysis is very context specific. One model may work well in one context and not so well in another one. Did you find like age and gender detection is a similar type of issue with that, or does it work well across domains?
Yeah. Okay. Let's say that in the past, especially, this is the reason why I wanted to start sharing with you, some seminal works of colleagues of mine like Moshe Koppel. Most of the work was done on formal texts, like the ones of the British National Corpus. Recently, of course, the focus and the interest from also a marketing viewpoint is dealing with the social media text. And so every time more, I mean, the approaches go in this direction. Of course, if you have to deal with the social media text, when you want to represent the text, because as Marcus said, we have to deal with the text, but we don't process the text the way they are. So we wanted to represent them extracting some features, okay? And then to make learn a certain algorithm, giving the most training example as we can, like to students, in order to have this algorithm, this classifier ready at the time of the exam, of the test. So say that if you have to deal with the social media text, of course, you wanted to represent them and taking into account features like emoticons, character flooding, the use of capitals that could be meant in order to emphasize something. So, I mean, the focus is not just having the same approach, I mean, working in a formal text and in informal text. Maybe you could obtain a decent results, but if you really wanted to work with the social media text, you needed to represent them, taking into account these characteristics that are present in a social media text, but not in formal text.
Are you able already to distinguish between human written texts and machine written texts?
This is a very, usually, keynote speaker, in order to be nice with the audience, say, this is a very nice and interesting question, but really I believe so, because we had this problem the first year when we organized the shared task, that actually it was the year we came up with the biggest corpus, training corpus. Actually, we realized that there were some cases of bots, and so I mean some messages can be written by automatically, and so the following year we tried to get rid of this, right? We didn't focus our share task in this direction, but yeah, there are works, and actually Francisco Rapelle, my colleague of the enterprise, auto profiling enterprise, they did work with that in order to distinguish, to profile, let's say, human versus bots. So this is very much important from a marketing viewpoint.
Okay, I wonder if you use an SVM, as I remember, if you only use a vector space kernels, but also graph or tree kernels?
No, it was pretty standard, and we were more interested in working from a document representation viewpoint. But certainly you are right, I mean, more experiments could be done with different kernels in order to see, I mean, how to improve results even further. But so we didn't do yet, but it makes sense.
Maybe one last question, because Paolo improved the time, but now he's running out of time again. I just take it here.
How does the length of the text influence the author profile in quality?
Okay, of course, if you have a very short text, it is more difficult. You have less information. So the year in 2014, when we organized the shared task, taking into account different social media genre, including Twitter, posts, and so on, we expected, for instance, to obtain better results on blogs, because when you write a post in a blog, you try, to be a little bit more formal, text is longer, and in tweets, we all know you cannot. But at the end, we obtain, participants also, we obtain better results on Twitter. So why? First of all, we thought that we made a mistake in the evaluation, but then we thought it, and actually in Twitter, people are more spontaneous. So even if you write less, somehow it's it's easy to write in a very informal. Usually, you show us the informality that is in tweets. So it's more spontaneous. But at the time of a training, of course, you put all together the tweets of authors, for instance, of a certain gender or of a certain age. So tweet after tweet at the end of the story is like having a longer document, even if it's composed by smaller sub-documents, some text. Okay, so it's not only a matter of length, but also of genre, because behind you could have this spontaneity that maybe in some other gender we write somehow the same way, no matter the gender and no matter the age. There was another question, maybe in the coffee break, I don't know, Mark is the boss, so you have to ask.
We can take one more question.
It was over there.
Could you pass it?
Are you really measuring gender? Or are you measuring lifestyle choices? So there was
Say it again.
lifestyle choices versus gender. There was this one presentation where you have this topic analysis, and there were topics which seemed to be topics of stay-at-home mothers. Okay, would a stay-at-home father not have or talk about the same topics? So this brings me to the question, are you really measuring gender, or are you measuring lifestyle choices which only happen to be unequally distributed?
Okay, I think that you refer to this slide, I think. So what they did here was, okay, they had the ground truth, so they had the post written by males, the post written by females, and they look at it from a statistical viewpoint, what were the categories that were, so the words belong to certain categories of this Luke resource, so they could somehow represent this. And of course, you can go beyond this, and you can say that, okay, this somehow represent, society or a certain kind of society, but it's a fact that women, at least in this corpus of posts, of Moshe Copeland Company, talk more about these topics, and the men talk more about the others. Could be kind of a stereotype, yes, you're right, maybe not always like this, it depends on the social, if for instance in Reddit, if you put yourself to analyze a certain subreddit categories, something that we are doing at the moment, like being Republican, Democrats, or Christians, atheists, and so on. So it's very focused to a certain domain, so it's not so biased towards some stereotypes, maybe like this one.
Okay, so thanks again, Paolo.
Okay.